let's just for argument's sake, you got left-sided forward who's Diaz or Gakpo, and you've got Salah right-sided forward. Those are your main men. We know Slot is it's not quite first 11 based, but it's near. That's nearer a truism than saying they're all part of my lovely rich squad. The Wirtz position is key. So is the next forward you're buying, Josh, to follow on from Neil's point, a lad who plays behind Wirtz? Wirtz is still central as his central playmaker, but he's the false 9 and there's the 10 behind him. Or are we buying for a player ahead of Wirtz and Wirtz is the 10 and there's a striker ahead of him? Where do you think, not what you want, what do you think the mood is around this? I mean, okay, I'll come out with my conclusions in a minute. But
this is where I think the lack of links is a little bit strange, but I don't know if the lack of links is always just a sort of like a bit of a red herring kind of thing. Like
we had no links to 10s, by the way, before Wirtz.
Exactly, and that's where I saw that.
Who, Mamu?
We were linked to fucking loads of 10s in January. We were linked to Shirky in January. We were linked to loads of 10s in January.
Coming into this summer, maybe I hadn't noticed any. Just doing the agendas, I kept seeing strikers.
I take your point, because I definitely think that given how Szoboszlai performed for much of the season, I know there were still question marks around Szoboszlai. I wasn't coming into the summer thinking that we needed a 10. I think Wirtz makes loads of sense because it allows Szoboszlai to be a bit 10 and a bit 8, and I think the way I see Wirtz is maybe a bit 6. I'm still yet to be sort of completely sort of swung on that idea, but I think Wirtz it almost can become your number 10 but a bit your false 9, and I really like the idea of having him as sort of both those positions. If it means that if you were to sign another forward, and it depends, because like as Neil says there, like if you are going to have a summer where you get rid of Darwin Núñez and Diogo Jota, then I'm absolutely all out to bat for a number 9. If you're telling me that you get rid of Darwin Núñez and Harvey Elliott, for example, I'm probably looking more towards that right hand side and being like, well, if you're now trying to sell me on the dream that Dominic Szoboszlai is not actually this right sided number 10 that you thought you were getting, he's actually more of a sort of, almost not utility man in midfield, because that underdoes his technique a little bit, but he is that sort of 8, you can maybe do a bit of 6, then I'm going to want to see someone who can be the succession plan to Salah a little bit more, and you're not going to be able to sell me on the idea of like a Ben Doak or even a Rio Ngamoa for a little while, because those players are far, far too young and far, far off it and don't fit into the 2-year window of Salah's contract. So that's where I'm probably almost looking for someone who's ahead of Wirtz, but is not necessarily just like bona fide number 9. It's someone who does a bit of left and inside like Luis Diaz did this season. So someone who's doing sort of right and inside in that same way.
Can I ask you, Momo, because the more we talk about this, more something's dawning on me. When we got our heads around Frimpong coming, we go, well, you can't definitely say he's going to play right back for Liverpool next season, and you can't definitely say we'll use him as Salah's replacement when Salah's out. But what you probably could say, I think most people settled on, is out of those 2 roles, there'll be 3 lads for them. Salah, Frimpong and Bradley for the right-hand side. There's 3 options for the manager going into the season for those roles, depending on form and fitness, let's say, simplistically speaking. Now, for a minute, bringing in Florian Wirtz, who could be the prime option for, say, the position Szoboszlai's had. One could repurpose Szoboszlai as being one of 3 options for 2 positions again. He could be him, McAllister, Wirtz, and who am I missing out here? Jones. Him, McAllister, and even Gravenberch and Jones, they could be sharing 3 positions between the 4 of them. Now, if you five of them, yeah. Same. Now, then you look at Cherky and you try to not just sell it to him, but give him, this is your plan. Between you, Ryan, Florian Wirtz, and, I don't know, and Szoboszlai, there's a lot of overlap in this Venn diagram. 2 of you are getting 3 places. So I'm not saying any one of you is my go-to guy, although to Wirtz he's whispering, you're my go-to guy behind his hand. But apart from those, most of the others, they're going, you've got a 2 in 3 chance, or you've got a whatever the maths is. Yeah. You've got X percentage of chance because this is how we don't know if you even forget what Pitchy says to him. I think it's an interesting way of looking at the way the squad works. It's not quite the 2 men for each position, because the problem with 2 men for each position as a principle of squad building is it tends to mean one of those schmucks doesn't get any games, right? Unless there's injuries.
It's like 2 positions for each man instead.
Well, that's exactly it, Josh. This is my point. Am I warming to something that's there, or am I imagining it?
I can see a world in which that becomes a pitch, definitely.
Or a plan, there's more than a pitch.
Yeah, if I'm a player, I'm looking at the way Slot did use his team last year, and I'm like, well, that's all well and good, but you used pretty much 12 guys or 13 guys for most of the season. So if you're now telling me that everybody's up for grabs and this is going to be a little bit more fluid, I'm probably going to need to see it a little bit more before I start believing it.
Fair.
But that doesn't mean to say that that won't be a pitch or the pitch, because I think we're all kind of conscious of the fact that there were elements of how Slot went about it that maybe he feels he needs to evolve, not just tactically, but in terms of squad management. Particularly, he made a point to say that he found it difficult having a first season without the winter break, and he felt like that maybe he would do things differently around that era. So maybe this is it. Maybe this is the new way of him getting around that.
So he's becoming more of it's a squad game, man.
Yeah.
Subtly, he's being persuaded.
But also, I do think that more than previous Liverpool managers, he does seem to be wanting to have a new specific plan for every opponent. So if you are going to make little tweaks for this opponent, for that opponent, then that means that having more different players who have different skill sets in the same positions is going to be of a benefit to you. And again, that might be part of the pitch.